And I saw the farm truck sitting there in the driveway with the door open. So I pulled in the driveway and I pushed in on the clutch, but it didn't stop like it did in the fields.
Uh-oh.
It kept rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So I peeled the door right off of that truck. Guy in long hair and jeans and jean jacket came up and he says, hey, he says, shook my hand. He said, I'm Willie Nelson. He said, you mind if we get up there and play with you? Of course, that was the Dallas Cowboys guy, you know.
All right, today we got Rick here with us. He's going to tell us a little bit about his upbringing, his history, his family. So, Rick, start us off.
I got a long history. It starts
We want to hear it.
1948. I was born in Southern Ohio. I'm the second of 5 siblings. I have an older brother, a year and a half older than me, and then I have a younger brother and then 2 younger sisters. In the country is where we lived, a farming district outside of Cincinnati. We had a little farm, no big animals, but we had an apple orchard and a peach orchard, and we had chickens and rabbits and ducks, and my father maintained a sizable garden. But all around us, there were some big farms and farm enterprises near us. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, my brother and I had a huge playground. Even when we were 6, 7, 8 years old, we had the freedom to just go. And my mother was kind of passive and, you know, soft-spoken. So we would go off. But I know that she kept track of us probably through the phone, through the neighbors. The farmer's wife would, hey, you know, your kids are down here, but don't worry about them. We'll feed them. And so we spent a lot of the time down at some of these other farms. Mm-hmm. And of course, we loved tractors, my brother and I, and we knew the name and the makes of all the different tractors, the Farmalls, the Massey Fergusons, the John Deeres, and we just loved tractors. And the farmers, they were never upset that we were there. In fact, they found ways to use us when they were doing their harvest, when they were baling hay. They taught us how to drive the tractor because that would leave an extra adult to throw bales of hay up on the wagon. And mm-hmm. we would drive the tractor down between the rows of bales of hay, and they'd load the wagon. And so we looked forward to it. I mean, we loved driving the tractors, and it was common for them, and they kind of got a kick out of it, these farmers. They Rick, go get my car. It's down there 2 fields over. And they would laugh because seeing me try to drive a stick-shift car. But I would do it, you know, kind of through the fields. And
so you were 8 at that time and you were driving stick
7,
shift?
I would say 7.
Oh my goodness.
But of course, when they taught us to drive the tractors, we weren't going real fast, maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour, because they were walking alongside throwing bales of hay up. And when we would push the clutch in, it would just come to a stop. One day, this farmer, he had to take the tractor down like 3 miles to another farmer's barn. His name was Otis. So he says, Rick, you drive the tractor down there because I want to have my truck there. I don't want to get down there and not have transportation back. So he put me in the tractor and got it all, the throttle set, and I got out on the road, and it was like a state road, you know. It wasn't real busy, but it was busy. And I drove the tractor down. Of course, he came around me, and I saw him go on ahead with the farm truck. And when I got to the barn, Otis's barn, I pulled in. And I saw the farm truck sitting there in the driveway with the door open. So I pulled in the driveway and I pushed in on the clutch, but it didn't stop like it did in the fields.
Uh-oh.
It kept rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So I peeled the door right off of that truck.
Oh,
And I stopped it before it got to the barn. I went down toward the fence. And it was a few minutes later, and the two farmers were back behind the barn, and they came out. And he says, "What happened to my truck?" "I don't know." He says, "You didn't do that?" And I said, "No." Within 5 minutes, they were barrel laughing. I mean, they were rolling on the ground laughing. It was quite funny, actually, because I denied that I did that.
but I mean, they knew.
Well,
They knew.
It was obvious, and they probably might have even saw me do it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So we were there till I was 8 years old. My dad died of a heart attack, and my mother didn't drive, so she was stuck there out in the country with 5 kids and no way to drive, transportation. Of course, we had friends around. But she had 2 sisters that lived down in Hollywood, Florida. And my father had been sick for a while, and they had made a deal with him to, something happened to him, that they would bring us all down to Florida. And that's what they did, brought us down to West Hollywood, Florida, 1956. She bought a house. Of course, you could buy a house for $6,000 back then. She bought a house down there with the insurance money from my father. He had a decent job. He was a tool and die maker at Fisher Body, which was a General Motors division. Up there was a lot of industry like that in Ohio. And so she used that to buy the house. The back of our house, if you went out the back, there was an easement, like a power line easement, and then there was a wooded area. You walked into the wooded area, and the Seminole Indians were still living in there in the grass huts. They call them chickie huts. So I knew the kids because I went to school with them. I was afraid of the parents because they didn't speak English or anything, but the kids, I knew just about all those Seminole Indians down there. I went all through elementary and junior high back then, and high school. Still knew them all the way through there. They eventually moved them all into government housing down there. But it was just interesting that it was that far back, that they were really still living in the thatched huts. They had no walls. It was just an elevated platform and a roof. And they got used to living it that way. Of course, they had mosquito netting.
Yeah, you got to have that in Florida.
Yeah. So that's where I grew up. Through high school, and there was no real option for college. And back then, they didn't have the student loans. They didn't have people that coached you through that.
Yeah.
Like they have
The guidance
counselors now.
counselor, yeah.
We didn't really have that. So I just knew that I wasn't going to college. I eventually ended up in the operating engineer's business. And that's really what my career was. Operating engineers, heavy equipment, cranes. My specialty was the big cranes. And I did that until, I guess, sometime in the 70s. The economy had a little hiccup with the gas crisis. It might have been closer to 80, I don't know. And so things slowed down, but I had already gotten into music. And that was thanks to my brother. He was the gung-ho music singer. He was singing in the bars and places when he was a teenager. And of course, I stayed in school. He'd left school a little earlier. And we'd always kind of played around with music at home. And of course, we had the sibling harmony that, really makes a difference when you have the same, what do you call that? The same vibration in your voice.
What instruments did you guys play?
I played acoustic guitar, and I picked up bass too and started playing bass because we had a pretty big group, and the bass player once in a while would go play another instrument. And later on, one of the bands, we had brass. So the bass guitar player would go play sax or trombone, and the other one trumpet. And so I did play bass off and on, but mostly I hired in as a singer. Back then, the dinner club businesses were doing quite well, and they were very popular, and they were all through the Lauderdale Strip. They were lined. We happened to work in one that was one of the better ones. And
Describe a typical dinner club, because I feel like that's not that popular nowadays.
yeah, well, they served dinners, steak dinners, and they had specialty dinners. And usually our first show was the dinner show, so it was kind of a little more subdued. And then later it became the drinking, environment. So I did that all through the 70s and 80s. We were in a good place, and this nightclub owner, he was from Brazil, and he really wanted, we did country music, and he went big, and he started booking some of the big names to come to the club, and they would play with us all week. And then maybe on a Friday night or Saturday night, we would go to the War Memorial Auditorium and do a big show. And we did that for a while, and that's when I first got to work with some of the big names, like Hank Williams Jr. was one of the early ones, and Ray Price. You probably won't recognize some of the big country names back then, but Tanya Tucker you would remember. And we did shows with her, Tommy Overstreet, and Barbara Mandrell. Someone came in and hired me in 1976, to sing at the Dallas Cowboys after the Super Bowl party. The Dallas Cowboys were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers down at the Orange Bowl, the old Orange Bowl. They had a hotel all booked down on the beach, and they were having a big banquet there. They had a big banquet room set up. And unfortunately, the Cowboys lost that game, the Super Bowl, but we had the big party, and that was back when, you probably won't recognize these either, but Roger Staubach was the quarterback. Tom Landry was the coach. And that was back when the coaches wore suit and tie.
Yeah.
And I was doing that show, and part of my deal was they gave me a room for the night too, because the people the group I had with me, they needed the place to change, and so as we were doing that show, as I was singing, I finished a song. This guy in long hair and jeans and jean jacket came up, and he says, "Hey," he says, shook my hand. He says, "I'm Willie Nelson." He says, you mind if we get up there and play with you?" Of course, that was the Dallas Cowboys guy,
Yeah.
That was his team. So he came up with his band, and they played we probably played a 2-hour set then. And eventually, I guess they had been on the road. He says, "Man," he says, "you got a place my guys can go crash?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a room for the night. I'm not going to use it. 30 minutes, I'll be home." I said, "You're welcome to use it." When we got ready to leave, I went up to had a suitcase. I had some different things, my guitar case and things like that. And they were all sitting around on the floor, all of his band back then. So
Bunch of hippies.
That was an interesting story. And I hope I don't sound like I'm bragging, because I'm very grateful for all the opportunities. that I had with music, and to meet some of the people I'd met, and to know and actually sit and be friends with some of them. And there was just so many that even that weren't musicians. I have Evil Knievel multiple times came in to the club I was working at, and that's when my brother and I kind of went to different clubs, and we did that a few times.
What was the name of the club?
That was called Nashville South.
And that was in Miami.
No, it was in Lauderdale.
Oh, Fort Lauderdale. Okay.
So, but anyway, Frank Borman, he used to be an astronaut, but he also was the chief guy for Eastern Airlines. So they had their Christmas party at our club. I did get the opportunity at the first club to meet Charlie Pride, and he came in, and he got to be friends of mine and my brother's. And every year he would come down, because a lot of people didn't know it, but you know who Charlie Pride is.
No, I was going to ask you, tell us a little bit, because I'm not familiar.
Well, he was one of the first African-American country music singers.
Okay.
And I mean big hit singer, big, well-known. He also had the opportunity to be a professional baseball player.
Wow.
And I think he had gotten drafted by the Texas Rangers. Well, Texas Rangers, they had their spring training down here every year, and so did the Yankees. But Charlie Pride would come down for the 2 weeks, or maybe a week, depending. He wouldn't sometimes stay the whole time, but if they had a several-week spring training down here, he would come down here and train with him during the day. But every night he was in the club with us, doing free shows, and was just a great guy, a good friend, and that went on for years. And he just passed away last year, I think it was. But he was older than me even.
You get any cool memorabilia out of it?
Actually, I actually have a baseball sitting over in there signed by Charlie Pride.
Okay. Well, maybe once we finish the interview, we can go take a look at that.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely show you that.
Cool.
I had the night I did the show for the Dallas Cowboys, I took a placemat. They had some fancy paper placemats, and I took it around and had all the players, the ones I knew, had them sign it, the coaches. Drew Pearson was a receiver, and I can't remember a lot of the names, but I took that around and got it signed. So by later, toward the end of the 80s, I was out of professional music. I made my own little home studio to record. I started, actually I had been away from church all that time. I was baptized when I was a young teenager. And through all the years, you know, I stepped away. But we Kay and I kind of returned to church together. And looking back, the Holy Spirit was always tugging at me throughout, you know, my whole music career. And there was a lot of bad stuff that went on in that, the drugs, and I just saw so much. I just was fortunate that I never had a desire to get into that, and almost all the people I knew did. And I feel very fortunate. I've been married to Kay for 47 years. We got married with 3 kids. She had 1 and I had 2. We had I think a 8 and a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. Kay could tell you. But I eventually retired from the operating engineers early. I'd had back surgery, and I retired at 60. So I've been retired 17 years.
Well, sounds like you've had exciting life, a very well-lived life.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate. I always had the drive. I knew that from the day I got out of high school that I had to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I never went without a job. And my wife, Kay, she's the same way. She's never been intentionally without a job.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, we had 5 jobs between us. Because a lot of the time I played music, I was working a full-time job during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And like the times I would be working with my brother, I could take a few days during the week off and just work the weekends with him. And then, and at one point, Kay had 3 jobs because she was closing out a doctor and one practice and starting another practice. And that's her story.
How have you found retirement?
I've always stayed busy. I mean, some people tell you I'm busier now Kay always jokes about that. I'm busier now than I was when I was working. No, you weren't.
You must have forgot by now.
Yeah, no, I have more free time, but I got something going every day. I still have to mow the lawn, so.
Now that we're kind of wrapping up, is there any wisdom that you could share, something that you've gathered over the years that you can pass on to our viewers?
For someone from the younger generation, you need God worse than you think you do. Don't shy away. Reach out to Him. He'll help you. And I've needed Him, and a lot of times that's what draws people back to God is pain and suffering and hardships, and you're going to go through them. Show me somebody that hasn't. And the older you get, the more you realize that, most everything's behind you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't dread the future.
And before we wrap up, is there anything that you can share for musicians, perhaps, because of the success and experience that you had? Any motivational words or word of encouragement for people who are trying to make it in music?
Enjoy it, I guess, because people know if you're not enjoying it. If you're enjoying it, people are enjoying watching you do it.
All right. Well, with that, I'll just say thank you very much for joining us today, Rick.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you asking me, and I hope I didn't babble too much.